We've reached the mid-year point, which means another list. This week on BV Weekly, Andrew and I talk about our favorite records of 2026 so far, and some other stuff too.
What's up, Dave?
What's up with you, Andrew?
Well, I've been staying cool because it is 100 degrees outside, and I have been living for social media this week because I don't know if you've noticed this, but there is Beach Boys discourse on Twitter.
Oh, no. Actually, this has not crossed my radar. Twitter just knows you like the Beach Boys more than me, so it hasn't served this up to me yet.
It's certainly, I think, we've said before, like the algorithm, it's like once you look at one tweet, it's like, oh, you want to see 100 others like it?
Yeah, just so that.
Yeah, and there was like this one take about Beatles versus Beach Boys versus Stones, like some weird thing. I forget the exact, but then I just looked at it because, me, and all of a sudden, like, it just, and all these like familiar accounts that you see a lot in the For You, that talk music are just like weighing in on this Beach Boys thing. And I'm like, oh, like I posted the George Costanza meme from Seinfeld. It's like, I've been preparing my whole life for this. I weighed in obviously because Beach Boys. So I've been, I'm excited. It's been fun to look at all these people talk about the Beach Boys in 2026 on social media. Also, just I know this is like, get a life, but like I said, I've been inside. But I saw this really cool tweet, and it was just like about how good Nirvana is, and like about how original they are. It was like people say they ripped off like this band, that band, that band, that band, but what other band could rip all those things off at once? And I was like, wow, how refreshing is it in 2026 for somebody to just be like, yo, Nirvana rocks. And I was like, it made me smile. I was happy about it.
So you were happy with the Nirvana discourse. Were you disappointed with the Beach Boys discourse? What's going on there?
No. It's like, I some takes I agree with, some takes I don't. But it's just, I feel like it's a lot of stuff's going on. But I feel like people are kind of talking about, one thing is like, why are the Beach Boys and the Beatles more favored by younger generations than the Stones? And then some people, because also there's greatest American band discourse. So I think it came from that, right? Like, because there's the people are posting like their top 10 greatest American bands. And I actually tweeted, there's too many greatest American bands lists being posted without the Beach Boys. Maybe that's why Twitter started showing me Beach Boys things.
You started the Beach Boys discourse?
I didn't start any discourse. There's no way I'm taking credit for that. But maybe there was also Beach Boys discourse, and then Twitter was like, you got to see more of this. But so I think that's part of it too. Is like, and then people are like, oh, they aren't one of the greatest American bands, whatever. And then it's like, why do younger generations like them? Older generations see them as like Kokomo and Mike Love's, surf songs or whatever. And it's like, blah, 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 blah. So it's like, it's just been interesting to look at what people are saying and how people are discussing them in this context. And it's like, there's like the crazy like fanatics who, go deep into the 70s era stuff. And then there's the people who have clearly never heard that stuff. And it's just kind of fun to read it all. I'm always down to have people talking about the Beach Boys, positive or negative. So my biggest takeaway is it is so interesting how after 60 years after Pet Sounds, it's like there's still this underrated band despite being so popular, because it's like there's still just like masses and masses of people who have only heard like a tiny fraction of their catalog, because so much of their catalog is actually obscure compared to how many songs they had, like, how popular they were for like the 60s. So it's just like, it's funny how like they're just forever the underdog story, no matter how acclaimed they get by critics and how popular they have been for, over half a century.
Are they the best American band?
Of course they're the best American band.
Is there a more consensus choice on Twitter?
Grateful Dead.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I feel like the Grateful Dead sort of are like unofficially nicknamed the greatest American band. So, when that conversation comes up, their fans are gonna, but it's pretty much like Grateful Dead versus Velvet Underground, I think. And then of course, then there's also like, okay, these are all like old white male rock bands. Like, what about like all the other styles of music? What about jazz? What about women? What about like non-white people? So, but it does seem like Grateful Dead, Velvet Underground probably get brought up the most.
Well, what about jazz? what about not staying cool? That's what I did last night. I did not take the advice of meteorologists, and then I headed outside in this heat wave last night. I guess it's getting hotter today, tomorrow, this weekend, right? But last night, I guess it was in the 90s. There were warnings. If you're coming to Central Park for this concert, please, there'll be water stations, blah, blah, blah. And actually one Central Park concert happening this weekend was postponed already ahead of time for the heat. But anyway, I went to Central Park Summer Stage last night for the big free Shabaka Hutchins and Kokoroko show concert that they were having there last night, which is like honestly so amazing that we still have free concerts of that magnitude
in this economy.
In this economy here in New York. I was thinking about that while I was there because, we do also we used to have a lot more. I mean, I guess in any year you could say that. So I could say two narratives. It's great that we can have free concerts like that. It's so cool that our taxes paid for that and donors. I don't know. But also, I guess you could say it's great that we still have any because we used to have a lot more. We used to be really spoiled with free shows in New York City, like South Street Seaport and no offense to the booking at Prospect Park now, but the Prospect Park concerts used to be pretty amazing.
I mean, you used to be able to see like Sonic Youth for free at Prospect Park.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I saw Sonic Youth for free in Battery Park, and which is now a live album on Matador. Actually,
and all the Piers shows.
Yeah, we had so much. Anyway, we still have some Summer Stage, which is not just Central Park; it's many parks now, which is confusing because we still think of it as Central Park. But so Shabaka Hutchings and Kokoroko, both British jazz or jazz, partially jazz in Kokoroko's case, musicians. For some reason, they had Shabaka headlining, which I thought was weird ahead of time, but I didn't think it was that weird, but it was definitely weirder when you saw it in action because I think like definitely a third of the place cleared out after Kokoroko. They didn't even wait around. Kokoroko said goodnight and like exodus to the door. It was pretty, considering the heat, it was pretty packed. Kokoroko, not totally my thing. A little too wholesome. A little too, they're like they're big. They're big. I mean, the Summer Stage, for context, it like holds 5,000 people at least. And it was pretty packed despite the weather. And but I would say by the time Shabaka closed his set close to 10 p.m. with like a 10-minute long flute improv, it was probably like a tenth full in there. I was so happy that Shabaka played last because that meant it was, well, first of all, cooled down. It was also dark.
Less body heat.
Yeah, and it's like, vibey and trippy, and now it's dark and he's got this cool, it wasn't like video behind him, but it was a very colorful, cool thing to look at. So Shabaka stands behind a table. He plays like a plethora of woodwind instruments and also, of course, sax, but he's also pushing electronic buttons, things, drum machine, whatever it is, beats, loops. But there's also, he's got an amazing live jazz drummer. So I don't know. I like the new Shabaka album. It didn't, getting to what we're about to talk about in a minute, we didn't actually put it on our best of 2026 album so far list, but it is an album we both like a lot. And we like many of his projects, whether Sons of Kemet. We saw him together, right? Comets on Fire at Bowery Ballroom.
Yeah, Comet is coming. Comet is coming. Did he rap last night?
No. So there was no guests, no vocals. There might have been some pre-recorded sampled vocals that he was playing at one point. But yeah, it was mostly just, kind of, if it was mostly improv, I'm sure it's, even if they're songs that are on albums, they're probably like improv to some degree live. And yeah, he stands behind the table. He never comes out from behind the table. So you really only see him waist up, and he's just switching between his many flutes and saxes, and the drummer is just going along, impressing everybody. It was a dance party for sure. It's like, it's very ravey in that way.
Which is interesting because the last, not the new record, but the ones before were like super ambient. But he did talk, I think, about wanting to bring the element of dance into this new album. So I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's very dancey, vibey, ambient-y all at once almost. So it's kind of like the chill out room at the rave. And it's good. I was happy I went to see him, and especially knowing that what are the best albums of the year was on our mind, and he's one of the artists who made great music this year. Just one last point to put what I said about there only being like a tenth of the venue full by the time he finished into context. Coco Roco are like this 8-piece band with multiple like powerhouse vocalists. And so it's just such, Coco Roco is a big show with just amazing singers and and then you just have Shabaka's like, I'm just going to play this flute for like 10 minutes straight, which is super impressive and amazing, and I liked it. But, it was more to my taste. But but anyway, not that they didn't fit on a bill together, and they're both British. They're both jazz.
No, they're definitely like the same scene, but
yeah, okay,
definitely way different vibe though, for sure.
Yeah,
I think like Sons of Kemet and Shabaka and the Ancestors were maybe be more similar to Coco Roco than Shabaka solo.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay, so honorable mention, that Shabaka record in jazz, our list otherwise. We put together every July 1st a list of our favorite.
July 1st.
What'd I say?
You said July 1st. This July 3rd, this episode comes out, so we're always a little behind.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, every first week
Beginning of July. Yeah, first week of July.
We celebrate our independence by putting out a list of our favorite albums of the year so far. Some of these albums will still be on our list at the end of the year. Some will drop off. It's always possible at the end of the year we might have one that we missed from the first 6 months.
It's more likely than not.
Yeah, but here we are. We up on BrooklynVegan.com now. We have a list of 50 albums. We are not going to talk in detail about 50 albums right here. So go check out the full list up on Brooklyn Vegan. But what are we going to do?
We've broken down the list into genre, and I guess we'll have to admit we don't have any jazz on the list. So that's one reason we're not talking about Shabaka, which we both love. So we've broken down the list into genres, and for this show, not on the website. On the website, it's just 50 albums in alphabetical order. And we're going to pick one album from each of the genres that we have, I guess, sort of clocked the list having. Genre is always a tricky discussion in and of itself. And as you'll probably see as we go on, there are some that kind of fall into more than one place. We tried our best. And then there are two
categories.
Categories, sure. So we've broken it down that way. We're going to talk about one from each. Should we jump in?
Let's do it. Start with indie rock.
Start with indie rock. Again, you could kind of argue a lot more albums than this on the list count as indie rock. But I guess we'll get to the rest. But
sometimes you defensively argue other albums on this list are indie rock. But yeah, go on.
Fair enough. And the opposite. Some of the indie rock albums on our list include the new albums from Mitski, Lond Hecht, Cardinals, Hiding Places. But the one I'm going to talk about is Starmole's Highway to Hell. I've said before, I think this still might be my favorite album of the year so far. But it's just, this band is the project of this person, Emily Moles. And it has been around. There's like a ton of stuff on Bandcamp, also on streaming services and stuff like that. But she has so much music. But this record definitely has been a breakthrough. And it's also like, I guess, a lot of her older music was sort of influenced by like fantasy and medieval literature. And this one's a little bit more personal and down to earth. And musically, it's just like kind of reminds me of anything from kind of late 60s, early 70s folk rock to the kind of 2000s indie folk boom to the kind of current like folky indie rock vibe that it's been going on. And I just think her voice is amazing. Her lyrics are just this perfect mix of witty and emotional and thoughtful and personal. And it's like an album that he makes you laugh, but also makes you sad and all these things. And I just think the melodies are so strong and stick with you. You want to just hear the songs on repeat, and her voice is just so good. So definitely a unique and strong singer in the context of kind of folky indie rock, I think. And it's an album I can't recommend enough. Highway to Hell by Star Moles.
I do like that Star Moles record. It slightly falls into that category of album I really need to get on your and Amanda's level on. And I think we saw Gorilla vs. Bear surprised us by putting his mid-year list out, which also has Star Moles at number 1.
I've been reading Gorilla vs. Bear for a very long time, more than 15 years. And I think this is the first time that we've had the same number 1 at any point, him and I.
Yes, definitely true, and an understatement. So that was surprising. And, I think you're about to talk about another album that was surprisingly / not surprisingly also on his list.
Yeah, it seems to be an album that I feel like comes up with Star Moles a lot. They are both like streaming services will be like people who listen to this, listen to that. Gorilla vs. Bear has them both. I'm obsessed with both. I feel like there's other instances where these things are scratching a similar itch. And yet we've called them different genres for whatever reason. What's the genre we're going to talk about next?
Country. Don't get scared. Is it country, or is it indie country, or is it indie rock, which leans country? Or
so much indie rock lately is just influenced by country, and we probably just could have included most of these as indie rock, but in the name of breaking out more topics to talk about, we've included the countrified indie rock or alt country or whatever with artists who are maybe more popularly definitely considered country. So records on our list with a little twang include the new Zach Bryan, Casey Musgraves, Brown Horse, Sluice, which is Sluice if you're not familiar, Rap Boys, and the record I'm going to talk about that we've been building up to, which is Thomas Dolbaum's Birds of Paradise. And I mean, now just to be like extra clear, the record we're choosing is not necessarily, the list is unranked, and this is not necessarily like, what would be number 1 of this category or something. Because I don't know, probably Rap Boys would be, maybe Zach Bryan, I don't know. But I just want to talk more about Thomas Dolbaum's record. I don't think it gets talked about enough, although it's definitely popping up on some lists. And it was recorded with MJ Lenderman, who drums on it, does backup vocals, I think some guitar. And it was done before MJ put out Manning Fireworks, but it has been shelved for a while. Thomas Dolbaum had some label trouble, and that's part of why it was shelved. So you got MJ Lenderman's voice on there doing harmonies here and there. And it's just so awesome to hear that whenever it happens. And it's very easy to see why MJ Lenderman was interested in working with Thomas Dolbaum. They have a lot in common. Thomas Dolbaum, I believe, is from Florida originally. Maybe still lives there. I should have double checked that. But
currently New Orleans.
Right, that's what it was. I knew there was something else. Okay, currently New Orleans, but from Florida. And, like, not like Miami, though, like more like, countrified Florida. So you kind of get these references to that in the lyrics, which I feel like is something that comes up a lot in this sort of like current realm of alt country. Just these more kind of like rural scenes are set lyrically. You definitely get that, like he's just got kind of this lower, more subdued voice, kind of gets comparisons to David Berman, as a lot of people in this world do. But also, I think you could compare to this other band, Friendship, who were in that world. Also, Pedro the Lion. There's another one that's escaping me. Damien Jurado, who's one of his like big influences. So yeah, it's like kind of like all that. And I just think, again, the songs are so good. The lyrics are so good. Like, again, his range as a vocalist is not super wide. Like, it's all kind of generally in a smaller vocal range, kind of a lower kind of like, I don't know if baritone is the word, but in that realm. But just the melodies and the lyrics they just jump out at you, I think. And it's really a good example of how you can kind of have like overall sort of simplistic music, but which is with the storytelling just being so deep, and it's just a really awesome album. and that is Thomas Dolbaum's Birds of Paradise.
And that one, I will say, you probably remember this. On first listen, I did not like the Thomas Dolbaum album at all. I just thought you were crazy, honestly. But that changed. Repeat listens, now that this one's really grown on me, and I look forward to listening to it more. I still have a lot more listening of Star Moles to do, but yeah, Thomas Dolbaum more quickly has starting to do it for me, and as well as a lot of the other ones on this list, which I thought it was funny. We went on this big intro here saying how these are possibly indie rock, but then you started the list of country albums with Zach Bryan and Casey Musgrave, which are on our list, which I technically wasn't talking about those two.
Right. Although you could argue that those albums, or those artists in general, incorporate so much indie rock into being these massive popular country singers. So I feel like on a musical level, they're not that different from Sluice and Rat Boys and Brown Horse and Thomas Dolbaum.
Very true. Very true. And as we talked about in a previous episode, according to the American Music Awards, Zach Bryan is no longer country, but alternative. So
right.
That was
what we need is the CMAs or whatever have got to get on the Thomas Dolbaum train.
It's true.
It's if the indie podcast can talk about Zach and Casey, then come on, country world. So much of this cool stuff is happening within the indie rock scene.
Some of those indie rock albums also are arguably folk or singer-songwriter albums. Is Zach Bryan a folk artist?
I mean, I think there's totally a world where that album or a lot of his albums get more called folk or folk rock than country, but not the world we live in, but a world.
Well, we have another category. The next category we're calling folk singer-songwriter. On that one, we have a wide range of more rock artists, including Algis Harding, Bill Callahan, Buck Meek, my new band Believe, Wendy Eisenberg, Greg Mendez, and the one I'm going to talk about right now, which is just an album that has not been out that long, but I've probably already played it more than I've played Thomas Dolbaum and Star Moles combined, and that's the new Beth Orton album called The Ground Above, which Bill Paris, our associate here, reviewed in Indie Basement. And also we put live, we're going to talk about this on another episode, but we also put live every year, in addition to our main best albums list, we also do, and in addition to our main mid-year list, Bill does his own lists as part of Indie Basement. And Bill's choices contribute to our main list, but Bill has so many more. So he also does, his own big list in Indie Basement. Beth Orton is also on that. And as he points out in his review, this album is really a continuation of what she was doing on 2022's Weather Alive, which was his favorite album of that year, or one of his favorites. And this one is also really great. Beth Orton is known for the kind of folktronica sound in the 90s, but that is not what she's doing anymore. And her voice now has really matured amazingly. To quote Bill, Orton's voice forever sits on the verge of shattering, even at the quietest moments, and you hang on every word as they float in the center of mesmerizing arrangements that are jazzier, more enveloping, and more woozily romantic this time around. He recommends a headphone listen. And I just wanted to talk about this amazing band she has behind her. There's so many musicians on this album, so many instruments. Shazad Ismaileh, who we know, of course, from a million amazing projects, plays. I did that twice on this episode. Plays bass, acoustic guitar, organ, synthesizer, percussion. There's Tom Skinner of Sons of Kemet. Speaking of Shabaka's old bandmate, Tom Skinner, who also plays in the Radiohead side project, The Smile, plays drums on a track here. You've got Adrian Utley from Portishead, plays electric guitar and acoustic guitar on 4 tracks. The list goes on. There's multiple drummers, guitarists, piano. synthesizers, double bass, fiddle. Oh, her husband, Sam Amidon, another musician we also love, plays fiddle on a track. There's congas, there's flute. It's just a really beautiful album that I love a lot. So I'll leave it at that.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. The arrangements are really rich. And I also agree with you on her voice. It's like, I feel like it has like a seasoned wisdom, like I love a good kind of like when an artist has been at it for a while, you can just kind of hear in their voice, like they're kind of a little bit older, a little more like been around. And she kind of has that world weariness to her, I think.
Totally. What's our next category?
Well, speaking of world weariness, but in a kind of a different way, emo. So let's see what counts as emo on our list. One record that counts as emo, I'm not going to name yet because we're going to talk about it in a different category. But there's the Basement record, the Joyce Manor record. Here's another example. These albums might all be not emo also. American Football and a band who might also be indie rock, Death Cab for Cutie. American Football and Death Cab, they're both kind of similarly, they kind of are from the same era, right? Late 90s. Well, though Death Cab continued for a long time and American Football broke up for a long time. But I feel like they both have these kind of like, to me, I call them dad emo. And it's a good kind of double feature this year, the American Football LP4 and Death Cab, I Built You a Tower. But I'm going to talk about that Death Cab record. I said this on another episode, but it's like everybody kind of says that every new Death Cab record is the best since Narrow Stairs. But I really truly believe that this is the best since Narrow Stairs on a level that the others since Narrow Stairs aren't. I just think they did such a really good job. They kind of talked in interviews about, or Ben Gibbard talked about like wanting to kind of tap back into the spirit of like classic Death Cab. Like they had just done that 20th anniversary tour for Transatlanticism and the Postal Service Give Up, and wanting to kind of recapture that energy of that era. But then also Ben Gibbard is like, I'm 20 years older. Like I've lived a lot of life. Like he's divorced, and he wants to kind of like capture lyrically where he's at now and not, just try to recreate where he was at then. And I just think they really nailed this balance of it. It sounds like, this just older, wiser person, emo indie rock record with so much of the kind of musical energy of their earlier years that had kind of like changed a bit. And like this is like the most like riffy, like rockin' Death Cab songs in at least 20 years, I think. And it's kind of cool to hear them capture what musically people might call a more youthful energy, while lyrically getting into the kind of stuff you absolutely cannot sing about until you're like in your 40s or 50s, or in you're more of a midlife type thing. And so it's emo has a lot of great quarter life crisis records, and maybe this is a midlife crisis. I'm not saying it's a crisis, I shouldn't, but it's a great midlife emo record, and I think it just has stuck with me more than the last few Death Cab albums. Even though this band's always good, I just can't stop playing it. I'm like, it really feels, it makes me as excited today as Death Cab made me 20 plus years ago. Longtime
Death Cab fan. I also really love it a lot.
For me personally, Death Cab are like lifer indie band of the year. They and it's not just the new album. It's like they've Ben and the band just continue to kind of pop up and do cool things. Like they just covered a Husker Du song for like some session that was awesome, and Ben had this quote going viral of him saying that for him the Velvet Underground are better than the Beatles, to kind of go full circle to some of that social media discourse from before. Although it hasn't, I don't think that was related to Ben Gibbard talking about it, but I don't know. It just seems like it's like they've been doing cool stuff and saying interesting things. And like, it makes me think of, how at the end of every South by Southwest every year, they're like they give an award to like the legacy band of the year or something. Mm-hmm. Death Cab did not play South by this year. But I feel like they deserve that award this year. Legacy band of the year, at least in indie.
See, there you go. So I'm just going to remind you that was the emo category, and you referred to them as indie like 3 times. And you know what really makes Death Cab an indie rock band and not an emo band necessarily?
They've got good pitchfork scores.
Yeah, that's another way to say it. When emo was a bad word, the people who considered emo a bad word, possibly guilty, were proudly still like Death Cab. And so, I didn't look back at who Death Cab toured with in the, early 2000s or in the late 2000s even, but they were right in there with the, in the indie rock scene.
Well, not to derail, but people talked about this back then, right? Like people talked about how like Death Cab and Bright Eyes and maybe Rilo Kiley were like the three emo bands you were allowed to like. Or the three emo bands who like were able to be called indie rock. That was like, even back then, this conversation happened.
Makes sense.
So I didn't name one album that I think would count as emo, but take it away, Dave. We're gonna include it under punk and hardcore.
All right. In the punk and hardcore category, we have albums on our list like Poison the Well, Converge, Lip Critic.
Two Converge albums,
and the one I'm going to talk about a little, which is by the Swedish band, Feels Like Heaven. The name of the album is Within Dreams. Is it a melodic hardcore album or is it emo? By the way, is every emo album not also punk? So why was Joyce Manor in the emo section and not in the punk and hardcore?
Right, especially section? When Joyce Manor, probably more accurately a punk band, basement headline hardcore festivals. Like we said, we're just trying here. Don't take it too seriously.
So what do you think? Is Feels Like Heaven a hardcore album or an emo album?
I think that they're a band in the hardcore scene who are making music that you could easily call emo, especially the old school definition of emotional hardcore, but not even like like I would say like it has the kind of dag nasty emotional hardcore thing, but then there's like at least one song where I kind of think of Braid or something like that. Like sometimes I think it's straight up emo, but that's just me.
It definitely emo with a mosh pit, unlike Death Cab for Cutie, which is, I guess anybody could have a mosh pit,
especially these days. But we know what you mean.
Yeah. Some of the bands have compared this Feels Like Heaven album to are Fiddlehead and Anxious.
Mm-hmm.
Are they hardcore bands? Are they emo bands? I still haven't seen Feels Like Heaven live. Still hoping that happens.
Have they played the US yet? I don't even think so, right?
Ever? I have no idea.
Or at least since the album, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not that I remember seeing, or at least not in our area.
Right. I feel like if they did play at least in New York, we would have noticed. But and it's also three of these people play in Speedway, who had a record I really liked last year, and I think Speedway also have not been to the US since releasing that record, or at least not New York. We got to get like, I don't know, maybe like one of the big fests has to pay to fly them over and they can tour around it. I mean, it can't be easy to tour America as a Swedish hardcore band.
Oh, now they're hardcore again. I don't know. The last thing I'll say about the Feels Like Heaven album is it came out really early in the year, and 6 months later, I still love it just as much or even more. Every time I put it on, I just get reminded of how much I love it and how not sick of it I am. I feel like, they definitely do not get the attention of, let's say, Fiddlehead, who, by the way, that 3-song EP that just came out, also not hard to listen to it a lot of times since it's only 3 songs, but sometimes I just put it on repeat. It's so good.
The title track especially, I think, one of the best songs of the year.
Definitely. And Fiddlehead will continue to be a huge band, and Feels Like Heaven don't feel like that at the moment, but this album is up there with that for me.
Hey, but when Fiddlehead dropped that first EP, nobody thought they'd be a big band. So you never know.
Which is part of the topic of this new EP, actually, right?
True. So Poison the Well and Converge could also easily be metal records, of which there are others on our list, like
that new Worm album, the new Neurosis album, the new The Silver album, and 2 that I'm going to talk about, which are kind of different kinds of metal. And so I don't want to give the other one away, but let's start with Cryptic Shift, which is not a band we have ever mentioned on this podcast before.
Once in passing.
We did?
Once in passing, yeah. On the episode where we were, when the mid-year list first came out, I think I had brought up, I was looking at like the most acclaimed metal albums or something, and I think I had like skimmed past Cryptic Shift being like a well-reviewed record.
Well, we now officially agree. The name of the album is Over Space and Super Time, which is a great title for this record, honestly. But just put, as long as it has space in the title, it's a great name for this album. I mean, first and foremost, the comparison you have to make that I think is most relevant to kind of the crossover for metal that non-metal fans listen to is, of course, Blood Incantation. Blood Incantation fans take note of this new Cryptic Shift album, which is their first in many years. This is a British metal band, by the way.
So it's their second album and first in 6 years. First since the debut, which kind of was buzzed about. But it's not, Mm-hmm.
6 years ago, and it was definitely buzzed about. In fact, you and I were talking about it at the time. I pulled back up the conversation. So this band got a lot of attention in that year. And 2 years ago, an album that I really loved a lot was by a band called Slime Lord, which is multiple members of Cryptic Shift. And I see a lot of similarities in that Slime Lord album that I was completely obsessed with, and which definitely made at least some of our lists on Brooklyn Vegan. And this new Cryptic Shift, except Slime Lord is more in the doom territory, but also both albums really take you on a journey. You could say that about Blood Incantation albums as well. They take you on that kind of spacey, psychedelic journey that make me want to repeat listen a lot. But one thing, unlike Blood Incantation, they're both death metal albums. Unlike Blood Incantation, the Cryptic Shift kind of has a variety of vocal styles that you wouldn't expect Blood Incantation to do, and kind of take it a little more into nerdy, proggy metal territory. And they also do a lot more techie stuff like Revocation. And of course, you've got Voivod. I also think there's some thrash here. I think of the great 2025 Corner album that we both loved.
Yeah, Voivod and Corner both kind of doing like that sci-fi prog thrash thing, which I think you get a little bit in Cryptic Shift. Honestly, the band that they reminded me of when I first clicked play was Ulcerate. In the way that it's sort of like really complicated, but also really atmospheric at the same time.
Thank you. That's a good summary.
And like you said, it totally takes you on a journey. It's like I would say, even if you're not a metal person at all, if you're down for just like 9-minute prog songs, like, again, I guess you got to like harsh vocals, but it's like, it also scratches the same itch as like, Pink Floyd or something, to be like really superficial about it. Really obvious for prog. Anyway, what was the other metal record?
The other one is one we've mentioned a few times, and this is the spin-off of the band State Faults, who are more of a screamo, post-hardcore, what else band?
Yeah, screamo, post-hardcore.
Yeah, so band State Faults, whose album last year we thought was a masterpiece.
Although I will say State Faults have a little bit of like Death Heaven-y black metal.
Oh, right. Yeah, sure. So, and this time though, they've gone doom on soft curse. What else? What other genres would you call the soft curse album? Kind of like post-hardcore doom?
I always say that it's like Circa Survive meets Electric Wizard. It's like these fuzzed out doom riffs, but with these kind of like higher pitched emo vocals. Like, I mean, you could definitely compare them to like, I think, a variety of Anthony Green bands.
Yeah.
Although not that he necessarily sounds like just like Anthony Green or anything. Like I don't want to, reduce it, but yeah, it's Circa Survive meets Electric Wizard is my elevator pitch.
Actually, you reminded me about Sound of Animals Fighting. So I was like, I need more soft curse. So I've been listening to a bunch of Sound of Animals Fighting.
Oh, really?
I've also been listening to a lot of Dio. after listening to Soft Curse, because I just want more of those high-pitched metal, heavy metal vocals.
It's like they have the emo, high-pitched emo thing, but it's like also a little bit of that hair metal, or like I mean, Dio is not hair metal, but like new wave of British heavy metal, like, or power. Like there is a little bit of that. Like you had said Dokken when you first heard this, and I was like, oh yeah, like it's as if Anthony Green were to be singing Dokken sometimes over over like Electric Wizard riffs.
Let's throw in At the Drive-In, Black Sabbath, obviously, and the new Silver album.
Yeah, which I also think sounds like Sound of Animals Fighting in ways.
Yeah, so both two albums in similar category on our list. And
it's interesting. It feels, because like Soft Curse are people from the Screamo scene, and then the Silver are people from death metal and doom metal scenes, because it's members of Crypt Sermon and Horrendous. But I feel like they arrive at a really similar place. Like the Silver record often reminds me of a lot of like proggy emo and post-hardcore stuff, like Sound of Animals Fighting, like Circle Takes the Square. And then Soft Curse, who are from like that world, have this record that is like doom metal. So they're really, really good double feature. A tour would be perfect. And they're also both like, they just both happen to be side projects of better known bands. So there's all these kind of parallels. And but it feels like a Seinfeld Bizarro thing. Like, you know, I doubt that it's probably pure coincidence that these things have, in my opinion, and probably your opinion, so much in common.
Yeah, and most people that know about the Silver probably will never hear about Soft Curse unless they listen to
our
this
job
podcast.
Is to change that on BV Week.
And the Silver will probably play 5 shows total this year. And they probably played even less
Soft Curse
last year. Yeah, and we'll be lucky if we get any Soft Curse shows.
As we said when we brought them up the first time, State Faults, who are from the West Coast, so are Soft Curse, therefore. State Faults like pretty rarely play the East Coast.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
we need to switch it up a lot for the next category, actually.
From metal to pop. Although a lot of the metalheads we know are also pop heads.
It's the most common, you know, like on Metal Site, Invisible Oranges, which we have long been associated with as well. It always felt like every metalhead was like, here's my top 10, which are 9 metal albums and Carly Rae Jepsen. It's like a very common phenomenon.
Yeah, it's so funny. So these are the albums that we consider to be pop that are on our list. And again, there are other albums on the list that could probably also be considered pop. And some of these albums could probably also be considered indie or electronic, but they are the albums from Slater, Underscores, Robin, Charlie XCX's first album of the year, Wuthering Heights. Her next album is going to be out, I think, in July. And I'm going to interrupt myself here. I'm going to tangent real quick because I wanted to say this. We talked about when Charlie put out rock music, and it was like this song that seemed trollish, and we were talking about the troll aspects and the sincere aspects, so on and so forth. She has since released 2 more songs from the new record. And I think that the other 2 songs, SS26 and Wink Wink, are not at all trollish, just really sincere, and also are rock songs that kind of in a lot of ways. And they're really cool and really different for her. And I'm really, really excited to hear Music Fashion Film, the new album. But it seems to me like there's all this talk on, like, there's all this anticipation for the album. And I feel like people have been overlooking that she also released another album this year, which is technically the soundtrack for the movie Wuthering Heights, or like a companion album, but it's really its own album. It's so good. Back to the list: Grace Ives, Hemlock Springs, and Hyde, which is spelled Hyd. It's a former PC music person. But the album that we are going to talk about for pop is Olivia Rodrigo's You Seem Pretty Sad for a Girl So in Love, which we talked a lot about the day it came out. But one of the reasons I want to revisit it, even though we have not talked enough about Slater and Underscores, I don't think, on this show, which are, we have mentioned that they are 2 of the most widely loved records of the year. Of course, this is also instantly like one of, maybe the most. I think albumoftheyear.org just put up a tweet that Olivia's album is like the #1 best reviewed record so far. But I feel like I just can't stop listening to it, and I have thoughts I didn't even have at the time. So I want to talk about You Seem Pretty Sad for a Girl So in Love. I think that it is Olivia's most mature album yet. I think in the past, her albums were sort of split between these songs that had these like Gen X rock signifiers, and then these songs that were like so like current teenage pop things, and like and her coming from Disney, like there would be like moments where I'd be like, okay, it's like a little too Disney for me. But then moments where I'd be like, this is like pop punk, and I love this. But I feel like on this new record, it's just like there's no like nothing is not connecting with me. I like all of it. I definitely still prefer her rock bangers, of which there are many, and the different kinds. Like she's kind of moved towards new wave and post punk a bit on this record, and I think the synth pop song Expectations is one of her best songs ever. One of my favorite songs of the year. I have, it's like if you haven't heard it yet, it is like in the ballpark of Gary Newman, Thomas Dolby, Devo, Soft Cell, Madonna's Material Girl. It's just so good. And then there's this song My Way, which is kind of the one 90s alt rockish song. It's like a little bit like Garbage and No Doubt. And I think that one is like such a banger. And then, like a lot of post-punk Cure-ish type moments, including The Cure's Robert Smith duets with her. And I just love the way their voices sound together.
Still my favorite song on the album.
Yeah. Not mine, but Expectations is so much better. But I do love hearing her and Robert Smith sing together. And yeah, I don't know. I just think it's like, it is just this rare album that has seemed to have united like the I listen to the radio pop people and the I would never listen to the radio like nerd indie people. And it really is just like a fantastic barrier crossing record. I think I just feel I love it, and I feel so good about the way that it is kind of this rare album to bring people together at a time when culture is more splintered than I think we've ever seen it. So
I don't disagree with you that Olivia might be the highest rated album of the year. I didn't check Metacritic or anything, but the tweet you are referring to actually has her at number 4. This was the highest user rated albums of 2026 from the website Album of the Year. And the full list is number 1, Slater, number 2, Underscores, number 4, Olivia. So that's 3 on our list of pop albums. And then 2 albums that we didn't have. Number 3, they have Leroy, which is yet another project from Jane Remover, another name. And then Panopticon, another metal album.
It all comes back to metal and pop.
Yes, there you go. See, this is the opposite. Instead of 1 metal on a list of pop, instead of the 1 pop on a list of metal. But I just want to say that we love Panopticon a lot, but this new album hasn't hit us in a way that caused it for us to put it on this list anyway. We'll see if we make a just metal list.
So I'm looking at Metacritic, and Wendy Eisenberg, Olivia Rodrigo, and Underscores are all tied at 89 out of 100 for the best reviewed record this year.
All right. 3 that we also included here.
So moving on from pop to some electronic indie pop or something like that. You wanna go for it?
Sure. In this category, we have James Blake, which talked a lot about. Was it last week?
It was last week. 2 weeks ago, I think.
The BB Club album, which stay tuned for the. I already talked too much about Beth Orton taking Bill's. Some of the things Bill would have said, but I'll save BB Club for that Indie Basement episode coming up. Also in this category, we have a band who, if you listen enough, I love so much, and is also on Bill's list. And that is Fcukers, spelled Fcukers, with their debut full length. They feel like they've been around for a minute. Still a new band, but been around for a minute. But this is just their debut full length album. How do you pronounce it? O? It's just.
I guess.
It's just the letter O with like the umlaut on top. And more than anything, this album or Fcukers make house music that makes me dance. I said it was probably my favorite set at Governor's Ball on the one day I went this year. And it's definitely the set that got me moving. I've seen them 5 or 6 times. I feel the same way every single time. And they're just such an exciting band. When the first single came out for the new album, I felt a little nervous, a little disappointed. Even that this happens to me a lot, I guess, first listens. But even that has grown on me. And I just feel like this is another really great album.
You said house music, but you didn't say indie sleaze.
I know they definitely are a leading figure in the indie sleaze revival. I don't know, is Slater also that? Maybe.
Yeah, it's interesting how I feel like Slater is like a major label pop star doing indie sleaze, and then Fcukers are kind of like a small, and they're not that small anymore, but like they're like a small warehouse band, right, doing indie sleaze.
But neither of them sound like the Strokes. But
Well, no, but they sound like Electro Clash.
I know, but one of
Both.
them is opening for the Strokes. Fcukers coming up, as we
And
mentioned.
Fcukers have opened for LCD, right?
Yes, they have. But Slater, she's hardcore because she's opening for Turnstile.
Yeah, which like makes so much sense in a lot of ways. I'm so
Minus the part where she's bigger than Turnstile, maybe right now, possibly.
I don't know. It's a good bill.
No, yeah, definitely.
But Bill had said in his review that he actually says that they have more in common with Fatboy Slim and Basement Jaxx than LCD Soundsystem and Hot Chip. And he said their song Play Me is kind of like their version of Rockefeller Skink, which I thought was an interesting way to look at it. Like, oh, this is like, rather than this being like DFA Records revival, that this would be like Fatboy Slim revival.
Which is also happening with the, first of all, it's a big year for Fatboy Slim then, because some of that, at least one of the new Mike D songs, or maybe more, definitely going into that Fatboy Slim. I mean, whatever, they're also contemporaries, or so maybe that doesn't count. But also Fatboy Slim played a huge set, streamed it at Coachella this year. So yeah, everything's coming up Fatboy Slim lately. But yeah, I mean, those are all, you're naming all things I like. It's all in that world.
Did we mention the Shacks?
Oh yeah, so that is worth bringing up. Thank you. I was a fan of the Shacks, which is Shani, the vocalist of Fcukers band before Fcukers, which is probably, the Shacks never really got big, and they actually were signed to Daptone, like Sharon Jones's label. But what first drew me to the Shacks is this is going way back, but I came across a clip of the Shacks singing, and Shani sounded exactly like Mazzy Star, my favorite band of all time. And I was immediately just like, who is this band? Realized it was the Shacks. From a Brooklyn Vegan point of view, we immediately started covering the Shacks. I actually booked the Shacks not to play. I don't know if the Shacks ever played a BV show, but I did book them as a duo to DJ an Governor's Ball after party, like however many million years ago, with the DJs were the Shacks and Japanese Breakfast. And oh yeah, okay, this is worth noting. I don't know what year that was. I should have figured that out before that.
I want to say that was 2017.
So in approximately 2017, the
right?
Shacks,
you keep talking,
feature including Shani from Fcukers, DJ and Japanese Breakfast, DJ'd Brooklyn Vegan Governor's Ball after party. And in 2026, I saw Shani as a member of the Fcukers, and Japanese Breakfast play Gov Ball.
It was a Panorama after party, and it was 2018.
Oh, whoa. Yeah. What was Panorama again?
Panorama was the other festival on Randall's Island.
Oh yeah. That didn't last.
No, that was they always had great lineups. It's funny how memories kind of blur.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was at that after party too though. And if you remember it, you weren't there.
Well, anyway, I always loved Shani's vocals. And then it's kind of weird because Fcukers like blew up in New York City very quickly. But it was what first really brought my attention to it was, I followed Shani on social media because of the Shacks and started seeing that she had this new project, so I was intrigued immediately. And I don't know. It's weird now because I don't even say like I like Fcukers because I like the Shacks.
Right. No. I mean, it's just they're both good bands who have the same singer and sound nothing alike.
But it's probably at least her vocals are a huge reason why I liked both. So
right. But I don't think you would never say Mazzy Star for Fcukers.
No.
Right. Just because she doesn't sing that way, even if she can do a nice, a good Hope Sandoval style. She doesn't do that in Fcukers, I don't believe, right?
Right. Well, maybe a little. And
Maybe
there's
a
one
little.
album. There's one song on. There's one Shax like song on the new Fcukers album, and I especially was thinking that live. It's definitely like almost more of that style, whispery vocal rock song.
Maybe with Fcukers blowing up, the Shacks will get like a reevaluation kind of, like they'll like the singer's old band, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean even on stage, Shani, I think for that song pulled out a guitar or a bass in the live set, and if I hope Sandoval is probably like on a Chemical Brothers song or something. There's at least so there you go. That's Fcukers.
So on a similar but slightly vibier note, we have another electronic category, just vibier, less pop electronic. Take it away.
Well, in that category, we have the strangely controversial Boards of Canada album.
By controversial, you mean divisive.
Divisive, thank you.
You can't be throwing around the word controversial in 2026 when you just mean that the reviews are split.
Right. I know you hate when I say that word. I know. All right. Divisive. Thank you. My vocabulary is not great. Okay. We also have the Lee Scratch Perry and Mouse on Mars album, which is heavily weighted into this list by Bill saying, sorry for the spoiler of next week, possibly his favorite album of this year so far. And then one that technically did not come out in 2026, but I think it came out a few days before, the last week of 2025. And that is the Marty Supreme score by Daniel Lopatin, aka, what's his name?
One O Tricks Point Never.
Thank you. And yeah, I mean, we highlighted this a lot throughout the year, highlighted it in one of my favorite albums of January. It just, really good soundtrack. The soundtrack is very influenced by 80s synth, Blade Runner style, Vangelis, Tangerine Dream. We could name the movies. Wise Blood contributes, her beautiful voice, who also, she's also on the Olivia Rodrigo album, right?
No.
She performed with
they
her
did
on
something, but
she performed with her on SNL or.
Oh yeah, maybe that was it. She's not on the album though.
Right. Okay. Anyway, she's got a new album coming soon, I hope. So anyway, that new age cosmic score, ambient, blah, 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 Marty Supreme soundtrack. Still love it.
So talk about some rap.
Yeah, go for it.
So we got a few rap albums on the list, including from IDK, from Elucid and Seb Bash, and the one I will talk about, which is Rock Marciano's 656. We have been in the midst of a dark, gritty, slowed down boom bap revival for at least for this whole decade. And even I think it kind of never goes away, but I feel like especially in the 2020s, this music's been more everywhere than it had been in a while. And Rock Marciano is one of the leaders of that, has been for a really long time. And there's been so many albums in that realm released this year, and this remains my personal favorite. It's the one that stands out to me above all the ones you might compare it to that have come out in the past few months. And I don't know exactly why that is, but it just seems to really just stick with you. It has this kind of like, it's entrancing. It has this allure about it that, again, it's very, very dark music. And I just feel like every time it comes on, my ears perk up. And the songs, just the beats are just so ominous and sinister. And the rapping is, as always for Rock Marciano, it kind of is deceptively subdued. Like it'll sound a little bit like, laid back on first listen. And then you look at the lyrics and it's anything but, and it's just, he is also so prolific. He has so much music. It is definitely easy to get a little bit lost in, the amount of Rock Marciano albums you could listen to. And yet this one just still sticking with me on this other level. Like, it's just a really, really good one from someone who's pretty much always really, really good.
Agreed. One of my most played rap albums of the year. I keep going back to that one, and the Elucid that is also on our list.
And so we've just about arrived at the end of the list. There's two other albums that are on the list that we haven't named, and that is the Nine Inch Nails and Boys Noise Nine Inch Noise record, which is primarily like these dancier versions of Nine Inch Nails songs that they've been playing live together. And you know, it's a new album, but a lot of the songs are written a long time ago, but the versions are new. And I know Bill and I are both huge fans, and it's just, I don't know. It's I've been reaching for it, despite a lot of the songs being decades old. These versions, I want to hear them now, and they feel fresh. And yeah, it's up there. And then the other one is Angine de Poitrines Volume 2, a band who some people might say are only being talked about because of the polka dot costumes and the long noses and stuff. But I don't know. I think the record backs it up. This album is pretty addictive. So that's our whole 50, and you can read about all 50 on BrooklynVegan.com.
Yeah, you know, none of the blurbs in on Brooklyn Vegan say blah 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 at the end. So there's a lot. I kind of started to fade out there at the end of the last one, but yeah. So
it's a long episode, you know. It's a marathon, not a race.
There's yes, the words have been crafted carefully in our blurbs on BrooklynVegan.com. Please go check out the full list. And are there any new albums out this week?
And that's why music journalism is still important.
That's right.
Yeah. Madonna's album is out this week. I haven't heard it yet. We'll talk about it probably in the future. The Ritornello Form's album came out earlier this week, so I've definitely heard that. And they are this up-and-coming emo band from Vegas whose singer also drums in February, who are a screamo band. And they are, I think it's awesome. And they basically, you know, I would say that they're pretty comparable to First Day Back, who kind of popped off last year with like an extremely 90s second wave emo revival. And so, but to me, the Ritornello Form are very specifically kind of like orbiting somewhere between 99 and 2001. It's like they have some of that, they catch that last second wave emo influence in there, but I also hear kind of like the really early third wave stuff, like before everything got really popular, like early Further Seems Forever, stuff like that. So it's a really cool record that takes me back personally to a time that I am old enough to remember, but is really exciting and new, and it's cool stuff. And then the Mary and the Junkyard album, which Bill reviewed in Indie Basement on BrooklynVegan.com, #music journalism. What else happened this week?
Dinosaur Jr. announced their first album in 5 years, called There Near. It arrives August 28th via Jaguar. And there's a new song, which, you know, if you know Dinosaur Jr., you know what to expect. I should mention here, we actually have an exclusive vinyl variant of that album. We're excited at shop.brooklynvegan.com. So go pick that up. Sad news, Village People singer Victor Willis has died at 74. Willis co-wrote YMCA, Macho Man, In the Navy.
And I am happy to say that I got to see him play before he passed away, because thank you, Riot Fest, for booking the Village People that one time.
That is funny. Awesome. New Order have announced that Stephen Morris and Gillian Gilbert won't tour for the foreseeable future. They're stepping away from touring due to personal health reasons. Bad Bunny brought out Damon Albarn in London. He surprised the crowd by bringing out the Gorillaz member for Tormenta and Clint Eastwood. And that's not the only Gorillaz news this week. Ahead of their MSG show, Gorillaz will be bringing their immersive House of Kong exhibition to New York City. One of our favorite current actors is, of course, Walton Goggins. So it was exciting to see him appear in the new Strokes video for their song Going Shopping. This was a fun one. Billy Strings, who the bluegrass star who also just announced a new album, has booked hardcore band Bane, metal band Cryptopsy, and other heavy bands for a Michigan Fest that he is curating at Ionia, called the Ionia Freak Fair.
I didn't know that Billy Strings got down like that, but apparently he had said in his quote about it, like some of these bands are bands he played with back in the day. So I'm like, I guess there must be like an old hardcore band that Billy Strings is in or something. I haven't found it yet. I was looking for it. So can someone hit up bvweekly@gmail.com if they know Billy Strings' old hardcore band? I assume it must exist.
Corinne Tucker's pre-Slater-Kinney Riot Girl duo Heavens to Betsy reunited for their first show in 32 years and have announced a tour. I am a huge Hedwig and the Angry Inch fan for like its entire existence. So it's exciting to me that John Cameron Mitchell is taking the Hedwig movie on tour. I'm a fan of the off-Broadway and Broadway play, but he's taking the movie on tour for its 25th anniversary, doing screenings and acoustic performances after the screenings, Q&As and stuff. He's already been doing this in a few cities, and he just announced some more dates, including Beacon Theater here in New York City. Wilco just had their annual festival, Solid Sound, which, as usual, had an amazing lineup with, they did their first Billy Bragg Wilco performance ever, or in like a million years. And but Wilco also debuted new songs there. Have Heart, speaking of Fiddlehead, Pat Flynn's previous band Have Heart, they played some reunion shows in recent years, and they have announced more, including Festival Revolution Rising and a few other dates in a few other cities. And another reunion, the Yummy Fur have announced their first album in 27 years. The 90s Scottish indie band returned with Everybody Talks About The Weather, their first album in nearly 3 decades. I mentioned that we have an exclusive vinyl variant of that new Dinosaur Jr. album. We also have a new pressing, first time on vinyl since it came out like 11 years ago, of Thursday's album, No Devolution. Of course, I always hate when I have to pronounce that one. And we also have a new anniversary pressing of Gojira's Magma. We have a new pressing of a Between the Buried and Me album, and much more in the Brooklyn Vegan shop. Oh, the Save Ferris's debut album, It Means Everything, first time on vinyl.
Classic.
Of course, as we have mentioned before, the new This Is Lorelei album, and much more at shop.brooklynvegan.com. So go check that all out. And unless you have anything else, Andrew, I think that's it. Until next week.
Yeah, actually, speaking of Thursday, but the record, by the way, is 15 years old, not 11.
Oh yeah, sorry.
But they had those singles a few years ago, and I kind of figured
it came out in 2011. That's what it was.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
I kind of was like, okay, are we getting a Thursday record now? It's been a while. I don't know if you saw, but Jeff was asked about this on Alternative Press's podcast, and he kind of avoided the question. He kind of said, I don't know. He seemed to make it sound like it's kind of hard for the band to write, and so I'm like, I was hoping the answer would be more of a resounding, like, of course that's happening, but I'm not gonna give up hope. But please surprise us Thursday. Give us the new record. We all need it.
Talk to you next week.
Thanks for tuning in. Dave and I will be back every Friday morning with new episodes of BV Weekly. And in between the episodes, you can always get much more from us at brooklynvegan.com, on all of our social media, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can pick up records from us at shop.brooklynvegan.com. And if you like what you hear, tell your friends about us, subscribe to the show, give us a good rating. All that little stuff goes a really long way. It really helps us a lot, and we really appreciate it. So until then, thank you again, and see you next time.